In this day and age, the most famous rapper to come out of Savannah, Georgia is Quando Rondo by far. Growing up, Quando spent time in Hitchville, aka the Hitch Village Projects, and the Westlake Projects. Quando had it hard growing up and was abused by his parents as a child, ultimately ending up in foster homes. And growing up without guidance in this dangerous city, he would ultimately end up in trouble with the law from a young age. Quando would get into a fight with his cousin at aged 11 at his aunt's house, and when she called the police, he was sent to a juvenile facility for the first time, something that he would eventually open up to DJ Vlad about in an interview.
When I was like 11, my first time going to juvenile, I was like 11. From 11 all the way to 16, I really spent all that time being locked up.
Yeah.
At the age of 13, Quando cut off his ankle monitor and begun robbing houses, later catching cases apparently for burglary, drugs, and possession of a firearm. With Quando later explaining in a documentary about his life that in his area growing up in Savannah, people would literally do anything they could to make money, from home invasions to drug dealing and murder.
Trying to give him some money, my rather is working in the house, selling dope, crack, weed, robbing it, knocking it, feel me?
Clearly, Quando had fallen deep into the criminal underworld as a teenager. In fact, there's even one rumour that Quando was forced to take a life of a friend as a teen, with Quando later rapping on the song Letter to You about having to shoot a close friend who had apparently testified on him, as well as on the track Run Me Up a Check, where he would refer to putting someone on a stretcher and burying them. It's unclear if these are just rap lyrics, painting a picture of the kinds of situations a young Crip would go through in the streets of Savannah, or a genuine confession. But what is clear is that as a teenager, Quando Rondo was finding himself in some of the most dangerous situations and environments one could imagine. And the unfortunate truth is that being in the streets can lead you to lose those people closest to you. In 2014, Quando was locked up with another teenager by the name of Quafie Murphy. They would become friends and plan to take over Savannah together. Unfortunately, Quando would end up being caught with a gun and being sent back to jail. Whilst he was inside, on April the 26th, 2014, Quafie and a guy called Alan Moore were standing on 3800 Bull Street in Aaron's driveway, about to sell a gun to a guy called Norman Kuntz Jr., aka Juki. Things would go wrong during this deal, and at a certain point the seller decided to snake the buyers, shooting both of them in the head. Alan Moore would survive, but Quafie Murphy would die, with the shooter later getting life plus 30 years. With the court being told the tragic story of how the shooter had killed 16-year-old Quafie Murphy and wounded his 23-year-old friend. Quando Rondo would be broken-hearted about the loss of his close friend, who had been like a big brother to him, with this devastating incident going down whilst Quando was still going in and out of jail. He would break down the impact that losing Quafie had on him in a 2018 interview with DJ Small's Eyes.
You might not notice I always rap about my homeboy Quafie. I'm very heartbroken about that. He wasn't just somebody I ran the streets with. He was older than me, feel me? I met him in juvenile. Like, that's the first person I ever known that got killed. That's my first time realizing, like, death real.
Throughout his career, Quando has proudly shown off his status as a member of the Rollin' 60s Crips, with blue bandanas and Crip imagery being present on many of his projects and videos. And while the Rolling 60s started in Los Angeles, over the past few decades, its influence has spread all across the United States, as OGs from the original gang set up operation in other cities and states all over America. In Savannah, Georgia, one of the blocks where the Rolling 60s Crips influence is undeniable is around 33rd Street on the east side of the city. This is where Quando's right-hand man and the infamous shooter of King Von, Lil Tim, hails from.
Where I grew up at, where my grandma used to live at, was on the 3, so like every day I was already on the 3, so whatever was going on, I was already tuned in.
With the Rollin' 60s hailing from 33rd Street, or the 3, known to throw up a 3 hand sign. Despite not actually growing up with Lil Tim, Quando got involved with the Rollin' 60s from a young age, and he wasn't the only one. Quando would apparently meet 33rd Street native Lil Tim around high school age, running into each other and apparently having a mutual respect due to the fact that they both had a strong reputation in the streets.
We met each other on some high school shit, like hearing both of each other's names ringing bells in the city type shit.
But at the time, Lil Tim was a promising football player with dreams of the NFL before he had gotten sucked deeper into the street life, with Lil Tim later admitting to Fuchsia's TV that the appeal of the streets ultimately pulled him away from the football field.
While I was playing sports, I still had shit going on in the streets. And when I got caught up with the streets, all the sports went out the door.
Lil Tim would ultimately wind up becoming affiliated with a Rollin' 60s affiliated street crew known as OTM, or Only the Mob, with this group later being referred to by the name Jump Out Gang, or JOG.